The silence came first, and it spread across the Karo system like a held breath. Because the Velthari Empire had ruled space for centuries, and every war they had ever fought began the same way. With loud announcements, proud fleets, and long speeches meant to break the enemy's spirit before the first shot was fired. But when the human ships arrived, there were no words at all, only dark shapes slipping out of warp at the edge of the system, their hulls dull and unmarked, drifting without lights or signals. And this strange quiet unsettled the Empire commanders more than any threat ever had. Because war without noise felt wrong, felt dangerous. And in the command spire above the capital world, High Overlord Zathun stared at the tactical display with growing anger and confusion, his four eyes scanning the sensor readings again and again as his officers whispered in fear. Since the human fleet did not form neat lines or defensive walls like other species, instead spreading out like hunters moving through tall grass, each ship acting alone but somehow still connected. And Zathun demanded to know where the human generals were, where their flagships were, where the proud leaders who always stood at the front of war fleets should be. Because the Velthari believed power came from rank and blood, from clear command chains that flowed from the throne down to the lowest soldier. Yet the answer he received shook him, for the officers could find no command vessels, no special ships, no clear leaders at all. Only hundreds of warships built for speed and violence. And when the first human transmission arrived, it did not calm the room, because it was not a speech or a warning but a single cold sentence repeated again and again across open space, stating only that Task Force Cerberus had been deployed and rules of engagement were active. Words that meant nothing to the Empire but somehow carried a feeling of finality. And before anyone could respond, the humans attacked, their ships accelerating suddenly with brutal force, engines burning brighter than safety limits should allow, as if the crews did not care if their own vessels survived. And plasma fire filled the void as Velthari cruisers fired first, confident in their superior numbers and heavy shields. Yet the human ships did not dodge like sensible pilots should, instead charging straight into the storm of weapons, some being torn apart mid-flight while others pushed through the fire like wounded animals refusing to fall. And one human frigate, already split open along its side, slammed directly into a Velthari destroyer at full speed, the impact lighting space with a flash so bright it blinded sensors. And when the wreckage drifted apart, it was clear that both ships were lost. Yet small pods launched from the human wreck and shot toward nearby Empire vessels, and panic spread through the command spire as officers realized the humans were boarding enemy ships during open fleet combat, something considered madness by every known military doctrine. And reports flooded in from across the system describing the same horror: black armored figures tearing through corridors, their suits scarred and marked with crude symbols instead of ranks, moving with speed and purpose, not stopping to secure areas or take prisoners, only advancing forward, killing anyone who stood in their way. And the Velthari soldiers, trained to fight in formations and wait for orders, found themselves overwhelmed by enemies who did not shout commands or retreat when wounded, who fought on even when burning or bleeding. And one Empire vessel managed to send a final broken transmission before its signal cut out, warning that the humans did not behave like soldiers but like creatures that believed themselves already dead. And as more ships fell silent and more worlds lost contact, Zathun felt something he had not felt since his rise to power, which was fear, because it became clear that Earth had not sent leaders to negotiate or command from afar, but something far worse, something shaped by endless conflict and harsh survival. Beings who did not need orders to act and did not seek glory or titles, only results. And as the human fleet continued its relentless advance without pause or hesitation, the truth settled heavily over the Empire like a dark shadow. that this war would not be won by strategy or numbers, because the humans fighting it were not generals seeking victory, but monsters in uniform who had come to end the fight no matter the cost. And for the first time in its long and brutal history, the Velthari Empire froze, unable to understand an enemy that did not play by the rules of war, unable to face a species that treated silence as a weapon and death as an acceptable price. While across the cold stars the human ships kept moving forward, quiet, unstoppable, and deadly. The situation grew ever more desperate as humanity's fleet approached the heart of the Empire's defenses, a massive ring of warships that glimmered like deadly stars against the blackness of space. Every human pilot and soldier knew the odds were against them. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing alien species whose technology made human weapons seem primitive. But what the aliens did not understand was the human capacity for unpredictability, for sheer ferocity when cornered. Captain Mara Voss, the leader of the first wave, felt a mix of fear and exhilaration as she gripped the controls of her fighter. She watched the enormous dreadnoughts of the Empire rise like mountains in orbit, their weapons glowing and scanning for intruders. Around her, human fighters weaved through the asteroid fields, using the terrain as cover, darting in and out like lightning strikes, their engines leaving trails of blue fire. Mara's mind raced with tactics. She knew that brute force alone would not win this battle, so she relied on cunning and instinct. She signaled to her squad, and they split into smaller groups, each taking different paths to confuse the enemy. Meanwhile, on the ground of the Empire's central planet, a different scene unfolded. The humans' drop pods pierced the atmosphere, screaming through alien skies like meteors. Soldiers inside were tense but ready, their weapons primed and their eyes sharp. The Empire had expected generals, diplomats, maybe some elite officers, but what they encountered instead were humans who seemed almost monstrous in their ruthlessness. Lieutenant Eric Kane led a group through the dense alien city, moving silently through towering buildings that seemed to stretch infinitely. The alien security forces were numerous, but Eric's team used their environment to their advantage, flipping over walls, leaping across rooftops, and striking from unexpected angles. The human strategy was almost surgical: hit hard, strike fear, and vanish before the enemy could react. As Mara's fighters clashed with the alien fleet in space, the explosions lit the void like fireworks of destruction. Enemy ships spiraled out of control, their energy cores flaring, while human ships dodged and weaved with precision, each hit carefully calculated. Mara's voice came through the comms, calm but sharp, giving orders and encouragement, keeping the pilots focused. Even when a ship was destroyed beside her, the remaining pilots adjusted, adapting instantly, never faltering. On the planet below, Eric's squad encountered their first real resistance, a squadron of alien shock troops, armored and armed with energy weapons that burned through ordinary steel. Humans responded not by retreating but by using guerrilla tactics, firing from hidden positions, creating traps, and luring the aliens into narrow corridors where their size and strength became disadvantages. The aliens could not anticipate the humans' willingness to take risks, their ability to endure pain, and their relentless drive to survive and conquer. In the chaos, a young recruit, Jessa, who had never fought outside simulations, showed a remarkable instinct for combat, disarming two aliens at once and using their own weapon against them, earning cheers and wide-eyed stares from her comrades. Mara and Eric could see the tide slowly turning. The Empire's forces were highly trained and equipped, but they were rigid, bound by rules and hierarchy. Humans, on the other hand, were unpredictable, chaotic, and terrifyingly creative in battle. The aliens began to hesitate, confused by the humans' unorthodox tactics, while Mara pressed the attack in space, targeting supply lines, command ships, and reinforcements. The explosions on the surface mirrored those in orbit, shaking the alien cities and sending shockwaves that disrupted communications and morale. At the same time, back on the humans' command ship, analysts monitored alien communications, intercepting frantic messages between commanders. The fear was palpable. They had never faced enemies like this before. Mara, sensing the perfect opportunity, ordered a coordinated strike. Humans in orbit would disable energy shields, while ground troops penetrated the city's power cores. The timing had to be perfect, and every second counted. As the strike unfolded, intense firefights broke out on every front. Humans darted from cover to cover, throwing grenades, hacking terminals, and disabling weapons, while alien soldiers fought back with all their might. Mara herself faced a massive alien dreadnought, using every maneuver she knew, dodging volleys of energy fire and finally slipping through a narrow gap to strike a critical reactor. The ship erupted in flames, debris scattering into space, and the sight of such destruction stunned the remaining alien forces. On the planet, Eric's squad reached the central energy hub, a towering structure humming with power. The aliens tried to defend it, but the humans had a plan: simultaneous attacks, teamwork, and sheer courage. Explosions rocked the building, fires erupted, and alarms blared, but humans pushed forward, pressing the assault relentlessly. Jessa and her squadmates secured key points, while Eric led the final charge to the control room, taking down the remaining alien guards with precise, brutal efficiency. The Empire's command struggled to respond. Panic spread like wildfire. Humans had struck faster, smarter, and harder than anyone anticipated. Communication lines collapsed and coordination broke down as humans systematically dismantled defenses. Mara and Eric's efforts converged, the orbital strikes and ground attacks synchronizing perfectly. It was a display of human ingenuity, bravery, and sheer determination, a chaotic ballet of destruction that no machine or alien could match. By the end of the engagement, the Empire's forces were fractured, disoriented, and terrified. The humans, though battered and exhausted, had achieved what seemed impossible. They had pushed through walls of metal, fields of fire, and oceans of alien troops, proving that their courage, intelligence, and adaptability were unmatched. And as Mara looked down at the alien planet from orbit, seeing the fires of victory burning below, she realized that this was only the beginning. Humans had shown their true strength, not through numbers or technology alone, but through spirit, ingenuity, and an unwillingness to accept defeat. The Empire had expected generals, but what they got instead were monsters in uniform, unstoppable and unyielding, and the first cracks in their empire were now visible for all to see. The final phase of the battle began as the humans pressed deeper into the heart of the Empire's capital, both in orbit and on the planet's surface, where the alien rulers had gathered their remaining forces for a desperate last stand. Mara Voss led the orbital fleet, her fingers flying over controls as waves of enemy warships tried to encircle them. But humans moved with uncanny precision, weaving through asteroid belts, dodging plasma fire, and striking at key command vessels. Each explosion echoed like a drumbeat of human determination, sending shudders through the void as alien ships were torn apart or sent spinning helplessly into space. Below, Eric Kane and his squad fought through the alien city, which had transformed into a blazing battlefield, streets filled with debris, smoke, and the sounds of combat. The aliens had begun deploying their deadliest units, towering exosuits bristling with energy cannons, flying assault drones, and genetically engineered beasts designed to crush humans, but the humans adapted instantly, using speed, cunning, and teamwork to turn every threat into an opportunity. Mara coordinated a simultaneous strike. Her fleet would create a blackout in the planetary energy grid, while Eric's team would sabotage the central fortress, cutting off the alien leadership from their troops. The humans moved like a single organism, each part knowing what the others were doing, responding instinctively to threats and adjusting their plans on the fly. Jessa, the young recruit, became a symbol of this unstoppable human spirit, fearlessly charging into danger, saving comrades, and turning alien technology against its creators with quick thinking. The aliens fought with fury, but confusion and fear began to spread among their ranks. The humans did not behave like any enemy they had faced before. In space, Mara found herself facing the Empire's ultimate dreadnought, a massive warship bristling with weapons that could obliterate entire cities. Its energy shields shimmered with a golden light, seeming impenetrable. She took a deep breath, remembering her training, her comrades, and the stakes of the fight. With precise maneuvers, she drew the dreadnought into an asteroid field. Dodging volleys of plasma and missiles, while smaller human fighters struck at weak points, Mara had calculated, their speed and unpredictability overwhelming the alien targeting systems. Finally, with a coordinated strike, the dreadnought shield faltered, and Mara fired a concentrated blast directly at the reactor, which erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, sending fragments raining down onto the planet below and shattering the morale of the alien forces. On the surface, Eric and his team reached the central fortress, a colossal structure pulsing with alien energy and guarded by the elite of the Empire's army. The final battle was brutal, with humans and aliens locked in hand-to-hand combat, energy blades clashing, guns firing, and explosions shaking the ground beneath them. Eric moved like a whirlwind, combining strategy, instinct, and raw strength, leading his squad through choke points and taking down enemy officers who thought they could command through fear. Jessa and other soldiers secured critical control nodes, sabotaging the fortress from within, cutting power, and opening gates for reinforcements. The alien leader, a towering being of immense strength and intelligence, confronted Eric in the central chamber, radiating authority and deadly energy. The fight was intense. Every move was a test of skill, endurance, and courage. Eric took hits, staggered, but refused to yield, his determination burning brighter with every strike. He used speed, clever maneuvers, and knowledge of the fortress layout to outmatch the alien, exploiting a momentary lapse to strike a decisive blow that brought the giant down, ending the battle in a storm of fire and collapsing structures. Simultaneously, Mara's orbital strikes had disabled the fortress's outer defenses, ensuring that no alien reinforcements could interfere. As the dust settled, the remaining alien forces surrendered or fled, their pride shattered, their empire fractured, and the humans stood victorious, battered but unbroken. Across the planet, humans and allies celebrated in small, exhausted moments of relief, knowing the cost had been high, but that they had proven something greater than firepower, the indomitable spirit, ingenuity, and courage that set humanity apart. Mara looked down at the burning remnants of the capital from orbit, her heart pounding, and realized the truth of what they had accomplished. Earth had not sent generals, diplomats, or even its finest soldiers. It had sent monsters in uniform, human beings whose determination, creativity, and will to fight had defied expectation, shocked the galaxy, and carved a path for freedom. The Empire, once confident in its dominance, had frozen before humans who refused to bend, refused to yield, and refused to lose. Messages from other alien worlds began to arrive, tentative, filled with awe, fear, and respect. Humanity's reputation as relentless warriors was spreading faster than any fleet could travel. On the surface, Eric and his squad stood among the ruins, looking at one another with exhausted smiles, knowing they had survived something impossible. Jessa, still young but now seasoned by battle, looked up at the sky, flames of the destroyed city reflecting in her eyes, feeling the weight of what they had done and the promise of what humanity could become. And in that moment, humans everywhere could feel it. They were no longer just a planet. A species among many, they were a force that could stand against empires. Monsters and gods if need be, a species whose heart, mind, and courage could outmatch the strongest armies. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would not forget. Humans, when unleashed, were unstoppable, terrifying in their creativity and monstrous in their will. And as the fires of victory burned across the planet, the humans knew that their fight had only begun. But the first victory had been absolute, legendary, and unforgettable, a reminder that no matter how impossible the odds, humanity's spirit could topple giants, shatter empires, and leave the galaxy in awe of what monsters in uniform could do.